MechaGodzilla is one of the most powerful titans and villains we've ever seen in the Monsterverse. Heck, it was the only one we've actually seen be able to actually straight up beat Godzilla. But how would MechaGodzilla fare against a whole different universe, filled with its own different monsters and robots? Could MechaGodzilla take on all of Pacific Rim and come out on top? Well, let's get into it. And first things first, well, let's take a look at MechaGodzilla, just to understand who this challenger really is. So in Godzilla vs. Kong, MechaGodzilla was created by Apex Cybernetics, because the CEO was determined to build a weapon powerful enough to challenge Godzilla's dominance, make humans the apex predators, the alpha titans again. And so in order to do all this, in order to take down Godzilla, well, they took two of the heads from King Ghidorah and used their telepathic connection to build a giant metal kaiju that can be piloted by a human. Kinda confusing, but it did work there for a second. But then Ghidorah somehow took over, causing MechaGodzilla to break out, to start wreaking havoc in downtown Hong Kong. Then he went up against Godzilla, started wreaking havoc too. Then he went up against Kong, and Godzilla and Kong all at the same time. So MechaGodzilla is obviously incredibly strong. He's able to completely overpower Godzilla, knock him down, ram him through buildings, everything. Did the same thing with Kong too. Now, granted, both of them were exhausted after having just fought each other almost to the death, but still, we've never seen Godzilla getting overpowered like that so quickly in a fight. Even against King Ghidorah, MechaGodzilla was completely dominant from the very beginning. Godzilla was basically just his punching bag at some points. He's also a mech, meaning that he's got all sorts of weapons and gadgets too. He's got shoulder-mounted missile launchers that were capable of stunning and knocking over Godzilla. He can unleash some super-powered energy punches, and that's knocked Godzilla over too. Even his tail has a deadly drill attached to it. And to top it all off, MechaGodzilla has his own atomic breath, his proton scream, which was able to slice right through a skull crawler, match up against Godzilla's own atomic breath, even overpower Godzilla's beam. So MechaGodzilla is obviously very, very powerful. So could it do it? Could it beat everyone in Pacific Rim? Well, there are basically two different groups we're looking at here, Jaegers and Kaiju. And both of them have their own advantages in the fight and their powerful members. Like Leatherback, a giant kaiju gorilla, who's able to take down and tear apart two different Jaegers, Cherno Alpha and Crimson Typhoon. There's Obsidian Fury, a giant kaiju Jaeger hybrid, with shoulder-mounted missile launchers and twin plasma chainsaws. Slattern is one of the most powerful kaiju that anyone's ever fought against, to the point where Guillermo del Toro likened it to the devil. I mean, Slattern survived the nuclear bomb from Striker Eureka, and then it took another nuclear blast from Gypsy Danger in order to put it down. Speaking of Gypsy Danger, that's a Mark III Jaeger, one of the most powerful Jaegers ever created. And it's not just that this Jaeger was the first one to ever fight against a Class 5 and destroyed the Kaiju Creation Facility, but it's also the pilots that make it so powerful. Riley and Mako are easily the greatest Jaeger pilot team we've seen in the series, and it's their skill and cooperation, along with all of Gypsy Danger's high-powered weapons, that do make the Jaeger so formidable. Striker Eureka was a Mark V Jaeger, created to be the first and last line of defense for the coastline of Australia. The strongest and fastest of all the Jaegers built up until that point, Striker Eureka was designed to function like a brutal and bloody fighter, and could kill kaiju quicker, more effectively than any Jaeger so far. And then Gypsy Avenger is a Mark VI Jaeger, and it's designed after its namesake Gypsy Danger. In fact, Gypsy Avenger's arsenal, the Plasma Caster 2.0, the Chainsaw 2.0, the Elbow Rocket 2.0, they're all designed just be an upgraded arsenal from Gypsy Danger. Of course, then Gypsy Avenger also has missiles, rocket boosters on its feet, and has proved itself to be a capable and skilled fighter, battling against Obsidian Fury, being the one responsible for taking down the Mega Kaiju. That's not even really mentioning Mega Kaiju, an amalgamation of 3 of the most powerful kaiju ever rolled up into one. All these guys are going to be attacking MechaGodzilla at once. All of them and plenty more. So if we're trying to give everyone their best shot here, I think there are definitely a few caveats here that we need to talk about for MechaGodzilla. Mostly that MechaGodzilla didn't fight against Godzilla when he was at his best. Godzilla had just gotten through fighting against Kong for 12 hours. He had been knocked out by Kong already. He was operating at a much weaker state than he normally is. Now, I don't know if it was actually 50% weaker than he normally is, but it's confirmed that he was weaker. But even then, Godzilla was still able to initially push back against MechaGodzilla when they first collided. It was really MechaGodzilla's superior speed and agility, not his superior power, that allowed him to get the upper hand. Then MechaGodzilla was able to unleash the beatdown, and Godzilla was too weak to recover. Until Kong stepped in, then they were able to tag team the big mech and beat him. Now maybe you want to say that MechaGodzilla would still do super well in a fight against 100% base Godzilla, just because of how dominant he was against a weak Godzilla. And yeah, you're probably right. MechaGodzilla might even technically be able to beat base Godzilla. I mean, that is the whole point of this Titan. MechaGodzilla was specifically designed to counter and beat Godzilla more than any other Titan. But still, we can't say that MechaGodzilla is undeniably more powerful than Godzilla just because it was able to beat Godzilla. It wasn't a fair fight, and I think Godzilla would actually win in a fair fight. But on the other end of the spectrum, the knock against Pacific Rim is that there is a massive weight discrepancy between these two different universes. Like massive. MechaGodzilla from the Monsterverse doesn't have an official weight, but considering that other titans like Godzilla, Kong, or King Ghidorah weigh anywhere from 100,000 to 160,000 tons, well, you can confidently put MechaGodzilla in that same range. The biggest Jaeger, Cherno Alpha, is 2,000 tons. The biggest Kaiju, well, Slattern is just 6,000 tons. Mega Kaiju is the biggest at just 15,000. These guys are nothing compared to the likes of MechaGodzilla. You can outweigh them by like a factor of 10. That's a massive advantage to have in this fight. But while MechaGodzilla has the weight, the biggest advantage for Pacific Rim is just the sheer numbers. This is a 1v20 fight on the low end, and nothing is stopping MechaGodzilla from getting absolutely swarmed. Of course, you could argue that MechaGodzilla could one-shot a lot of the things from Pacific Rim, just like Mega Kaiju was. But there are powerful enough opponents here to not get instantly one-shot. And if MechaGodzilla was getting swarmed by the likes of Mega Kaiju, Slattern, Gypsy Avenger, and Obsidian Fury, well, I think the odds start turning against it here. Then you also gotta remember, MechaGodzilla is a mech, meaning that the Jaegers will know how to fight against it, and what weak spots to target. It also works out in the Kaiju's favor too, because they specifically evolved and adapted to beat mechs. It would be a ridiculously tough fight, but I just don't think MechaGodzilla is powerful enough to overcome the sheer numbers advantage that Pacific Rim has here. It'll go down swinging, but ultimately I think it is going down. But what do y'all think? Sound off in the comments down below. I know you're gonna have thoughts and feelings on this one for sure. If you stuck around this long and made it to the end of the video, that's amazing. Thank you so much for watching and for supporting us. And if you want to go subscribe, well, go subscribe. You're going to see more videos like this one every single week. I'll see y'all then. I'll see y'all next time.